Hello, my name is Molly Heady-Carroll. I'm the director of Xenobeast Kaiju Cutie, a recently released traditional animated short that I animated by myself. And you might be wondering, where did you learn to animate? Well, funny story, my dad is an animator. He's worked for Hanna-Barbera Australia, Disney Australia, and Burbank Studios, and he has a lot of stories to tell. My dad is Martin Carroll. He's born in Ireland, a father of 5, a performer, a musician, a poet, a writer, and an animator. So I know a bit about you, a little bit, but for people who are listening, let's start with your background and where did you fall in love with animation?
Well, I was born in Bray at Stone's Throw from the Darga River on the Dublin side above my father's shop. Begot and born, no doubt. And I mean, it was Scooby-Doo, like Trumpton, cartoons like that.
Which decade are we talking?
Well, I reckon I saw Scooby-Doo on its first round, and that was 69.
Right.
That was the fare for on British TV, which in Ireland you could get. But Ireland also had its own network, RTE, and they were well into showing like Czechoslovakian animation. A lot of the European, I guess because they were cheap. The Film Board of Canada?
Oh, yeah.
Those films. So they must have been available to RTE because, it hadn't very much money.
Nice.
Yeah. So I saw European stuff, which broadened my horizons when it came to animation. I saw Fleischer's Gulliver's Travels.
Oh, classic.
And I was amazed because nothing else. I'd never seen anything like that. And then in 1976, I saw Yellow Submarine. And I went, whoa. So that made me understand there was a lot more to it. And then all the Canadian stuff and the Czechoslovakian, that was all there too. And then I was thinking as well, comics were very important because, Batman and so on. And in Ireland, you couldn't get the American comics. You'd just come across them in the newsagent and they'd just be random editions. Some of them like 5, 10 years, but previously. So you couldn't follow a series like that. But I used to love finding the American comics. And I remember in the ads for some of those checkerboard ones, there was the ads for the Saturday morning American TV.
Oh.
Cartoons, Superboy and what else was there? There was Space Ghost, the original
Space Ghost.
So I'd see these and I knew they existed, but they were beyond me. But then, later, I tracked down the Superboy Filmation cartoons. I loved them. I loved the simplicity and primary color.
How old were you when you saw Superboy first?
In my 30s.
I wanted to say, was it much later where you finally got to see this thing that you never actually got to saw?
I was in my 30s. Yeah. I was remembering as well, animation that wasn't on TV, that was somehow presented in another way.
Right.
And I remember my mother used to take me for my birthday into Dublin to do the shopping, and she'd go in to do the Christmas shopping on the 5th of December, which is your traditional day. She chose to go and do her Christmas shopping. We went to Switzer's, which was a nice department store, and they had a thing, and I can remember, really young, but we got into a spaceship.
Okay.
Yeah. And then you could see through the window that we were traveling through space, and then we landed, and then Santa was there.
Whoa.
It was cool. But looking back at it, what it was a room, and you go in one door, and sit and watch a projection.
Oh.
And then you go out the other door where Santa is. But to me, it was magic. Still is.
It's like VR.
Yeah, it's VR back in the 60s. And that was cool. I think that's still cool. The moving crib, Molly, in Dublin.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, when I went to see this as a kid. But they're automatons, and robots, really.
Yeah, the puppets.
Puppets.
Yeah.
Mechanical puppets.
Yeah, automatons.
Yeah, automatons. So that was otherworldly, and in a way that's animation, the true definition of the word animation, which it is to be alive.
Can you remember the first thing you ever animated, or the earliest thing you remember animating?
Well, I would imagine it was a flip book. Because I used to like my maths school book because it was really thick and I could do lots of drawings in it.
You're bored in class.
Yeah. So I would have been probably the bouncing ball approaching.
Right.
Used to do that. That was like magic.
So I guess that was your basis. But then eventually you went on to study animation, correct?
Yes, I did. I went to Dunleary College of Art, which back then was just beginning. I think it had just been sanctioned by the government. And I went there in particular because they had a reputation for being good in animation. And of course, back then, though, I mean, there wasn't much to animation. Like I looked into, there was no video. It was all done on paper or cell. Well, there was a model animation, but what you need was a camera with stop frame capabilities. And my father had an 8mm, but it didn't have a single frame capabilities. And then there was a cost, of course, of having it developed, but you couldn't have them developed in Ireland because there was no developers. You had to send it up to England. So it was a big palaver just to get going. But in Dunleary, I did some animation on paper, and I did your classic, your McLaren scratching onto the 35mm. I did that.
I remember when I was little, I think the earliest time I can remember animating was you built a light box with a pegboard for animating with the exact right size for the paper and stuff like that. And you built that yourself.
My brother did.
Your brother built that. Was that when you were at college or was that before?
No, that was after. That was...
Right.
Yeah, that was after I came back from Australia. So.
Oh, we're jumping ahead of ourselves a little bit there. So you graduated, and then what was your first professional experience in animation after you graduated?
Well, also bear in mind, Molly, now in Ireland there's a very healthy animation scene. Like
Land Before Time was animated in Dublin.
Well, I was around for that.
Oh, you mean now?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you've got like Cartoon Saloon in Kilkenny, you got Brown Bag Film and all
Great
those
stuff
guys.
happening.
Yeah, very active.
One, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Back then, Molly, there was nothing. I tell you how much nothing there was. I knew a guy, and his father was a wildlife photographer and worked for RTE. And RTE needed an animation, I think, for one of those public information. It was a beating heart. It was something to do with heart disease, probably. And there was nobody in Ireland who could do it, at least not within the circle of the people who were looking to have it done. And I remember my friend's mother went, I'll give it a go.
Right.
And that was the height of animation in Ireland. I think she was the only animator in Ireland. Yes, and then I went to college. And then I went to Australia. And I wanted to get into animation. And do you know what I did, Molly? I went through the phone book and I found animators and I rang them up and I says, give us a job, give us a job. And in some cases, I remember I rang up one studio and the lady says, she was English, said, oh, well, I'm very sorry. We don't have any work at the moment for, a beginner. Or what was I going to do? We don't have anything, but if you want, you can come in and have a look around.
Right.
Oh,
nice.
That was so nice. So I went in and I saw the whole setup of the studio, which I'd never seen before.
Wow.
And the departments and everything. And she couldn't have been nicer. And there was no reason for her to be nice. So and what was really cool was like a couple of years later, I worked with her on a project. I showed up and she was there.
Hey, oh my God, I made it.
Because she let me in a way,
Oh, it's so lovely.
But and then I remember calling another animator and saying to him, can I come around and see your setup? Because he was a model animator and I'd never seen that. And he kindly said, yeah, come on around.
It's so nice.
Yeah, no reason for them to be nice. And they were just nice because they're nice people. And I remember an eye-opener with him was that he had done a scene in his film which had a dinosaur coming out of the water.
Cool.
Yeah. And how he did it, model animation, how he did it was he had this model of a brontosaurus. Well, he had several of them, maybe 7 or 8 of them. And he'd sewn them.
Oh.
He'd sewn them, not in half, but he'd sewn them in sections so that he could lay them, so it looked like the dinosaur was coming out of the water.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Wow. Very ahead of its time as well. A lot of stop motion utilizes 3D printing now with magnetic, replaceable mouth parts, for example, where the whole face pulls off. It looks really freaky, and they replace it with another mouth with all the different lip shapes and stuff.
Or do you just do the lazy and just map it all?
Yeah. Gosh, right. So from Ireland to Australia, and then knocking around asking for jobs, and
and then I got a job.
You've landed one.
Disney.
Yeah, that was your first job.
It was. And they were setting up in Sydney, so they needed workers, and so they were training. And I went in as a painter.
How did you land that? Did you just call Disney? Can I have a job? Yeah, okay.
I did. Maybe that's not. Yeah.
If only it was that easy for everyone.
It was DuckTales, so that was cool. That was a break, and and straight into a big house and working with Huey, Dewey, and Louie. So, and Scrooge McDuck. I painted Scrooge McDuck many a time.
Incredible.
Yeah. So that was cool. And now, just to outline, to give you a sketch of what it was like in the big house, the departments. So let's see this. What's first? Well, script and all that stuff would happen, but the actual art would begin with the animators.
Yeah.
So there's a whole floor of animators.
And for younger people in our audience, keep in mind this is pre-digital.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah.
This was
all on
traditional paper, plastics.
Yeah. So we got
cell animation.
Yeah, we got the animators who would work. I mean, it might have been 10 anyway, maybe 20. You know, all working on the desks. That's on one floor. Then after that comes Xeroxing, because then the drawings has to be put onto the clear plastic, and that was it was kind of people wearing white coats in a kind of a lab situation, and they were all highly dangerous chemicals. And then there's paint and rendering. So that was painting the cells. The drawings have been transferred onto
right.
cells, and also rendering. And that's where, say, you don't want a black line. Say you want reflections of a fire, maybe, you know. So those lines have to be painted in. Traced from the drawing with a separate color,
right,
red or blue. So because you kind of a black line,
right? Yeah.
So that's painting and rendering. So and then where does it goes to camera,
right?
And of course, back in those days, camera it was one of the highest paid jobs.
Really?
Yeah. In all of animation, camera was one of the highest paid. But when you think about it, there was a lot done in camera. There was all that 3-plane animation. Or even movement, so all that has to be logged. It has to be transcribed.
Everything is on a separate layer, and it's individual pictures.
Yes, and when it's moving, when it's tracking, that has to be done. The drawing has to be brought along, so it's very complicated. It's a bit like, and the language that they have for writing it is a bit like notation for music. Very complicated and very essential job, but hardly, drawing, and then of course editing, and then I'm trying to remember which house it was now. I don't think it was Disney. I think it was Hannah's. But they did a good thing where they get all the different floors, because it was broken up. And so you didn't feel... Sometimes it was hard to know that you were even making a cartoon because you couldn't see the process. Whereas in a smaller studio, you're all sitting around the one table, so you can see the process. Whereas in a big house, you have animators, and the next floor painters, next floor or they also the department of paint mixers. That's a dead art now.
Exactly, with digital coloring.
I always liked the paint mixers. They were always chill, you show up and you get your colors from them. They were little hats,
So what was the animation department like? What was the vibe like at Disney?
Well, just generally speaking, there was a lot more females than males.
Really?
Absolutely. All through all the tiers of animation, Molly, probably still to this day, apart from the bosses. Yeah. So there was a lot of women.
Right.
Which is, I like women, so it was really nice to spend time. But then the politics, because, that small room, and then people didn't have their own sound system, so there was a certain politics in who got to play their music, and then it got toxic at some points, because the person who was giving out the cells to be painted, you had to be friends with them, Molly, because one cell might have 2 eyeballs, another cell might have a whole jungle scene. You get paid per cell.
Oh, really? Oh my God.
So you have to keep sweet with her, and also returns. If you go over the line, they will send it back, and you don't get paid for that.
Right. So revisions.
Yeah, revisions, returns. So you got to be You got to be quick and you got to be precise, and it's quite a skill, or at least it is quite a skill.
I talk to animators sometimes, and they tell them that my dad worked on DuckTales, and they go crazy, like this. They can't believe it. Like that's wild to them. Did you understand that was a big deal at the time, what you guys were doing?
Well, I was delighted, Molly. I was looking at Huey, Dewey, and Louie. It's cool. Yeah, it was. It was cool. It was cool. I was loving it.
It sounds like people were happy to be there and happy to be on the production and everything like that.
Yeah, and
cheerful
lots of
environment.
Young people, Molly.
Right.
Young people are usually happy, aren't they?
Hopefully, yes. So your first gig was Disney. Well, geez, what a what a resume. There were some other. You brought up Hanna-Barbera briefly, which
and then
followed, correct?
Yes. Then I went to Hannah's, and that was cool too. I still have the mug. We did. At Hannah's, the Teen Wolf.
Bernstein Bears was Hanna-Barbera, wasn't it?
The Bernstein Bears.
Yeah.
I was working on that, and that was getting too much. That's where the politics were kicking in.
Oh, so Hanna-Barbera was more political than Disney?
Yes.
Oh, interesting.
It was toxic.
Oh, right.
Toxic, and they didn't like me.
Oh.
Yeah. Sometimes my returns would mean that I didn't get any wage. And anyway, I left there.
Right.
I went to another big house, and that was Burbank Studios.
Yeah, that's right.
Which sounds cool, but it's Burbank Studios, California. No,
Sydney.
But there's a pub there, Molly, and it had great Guinness. Burbank Studios. Yeah. We were animating the classics, Molly. It was Ivanhoe and stuff like that.
Right.
Dickens.
Right.
It was some Dickens. And I was drawing, and I was going, oh, this is so much better than drawing stupid teddy bears, I said to somebody, because, it's the same process, but it seemed more wordy because it was the classics.
Hmm.
And he says, will you stop it? Sure, it's only a tax dodge, don't you?
Oh. Oh, man. So it took all the prestige out instantly.
Yeah, it took that out of it. And I think it was right. I think there was a special kind of allowance where if you're making cartoons in Australia and you get a tax allowance. And I did see some of those movies at a bargain basement of some shop in Dublin. So, the hardy classics. But, and all the walk cycles, all the characters walking looked like they were on an escalator.
Right.
But that's the first place I saw animators sleeping in the studio.
Right.
Up at the table.
God, you started so high and it was just downhill from there. But you got the real animation experience anyway.
But then I got a lot of smaller studios too, Mal, and they're so much cooler because, as I was saying before, you're all in one room.
Right.
So you'll see actually in the smaller studios, the animators were sort of rarefied creature who worked outside the office, and they'd just bring the stuff in because they had their own setup, So that's the animator is a different class in the process. So everybody else would be sitting around the table, from the scriptwriter to the editor. It was really cool. I remember with one place I worked. Yeah, we did some great stuff like Chucky chickens is a thing in Australia. They love their chickens.
Right.
Frozen chickens. So Chucky chickens and Elvis.
Okay.
It was really nice money. It was like a little bridge, and I was made with silver and golden, and he was walking over the bridge singing, "Love you tender, love me."
Oh.
Chucky chicken.
Like chicken tenders.
Yeah. Yeah. Also then I came to realise that I was going, oh, that's cool, Elvis. It's not Elvis. It's an Elvis imitator. We can't afford Elvis. So faux Elvis selling frozen chickens. And there was the small studios, Molly, would range from the one I was outlining there, which had its own camera and everything set up. That was quite a big enterprise, to somebody's kitchen. I worked in somebody's kitchen.
Wow.
To making an ad for ice pops.
Right.
And ice pops, how else do you sell them, Molly?
What?
It's an ice pop, it's very nice. No, you animate it.
Right, I see. Yeah.
Some things you can't sell just by showing them. Animate them.
To give them some legs and a face and make them do a little dance or something.
Yeah.
When you went from Australia, you met my mother, Sam, there.
Certainly did. I said the best things that ever happened to me, Molly, was bumping into your mother. in Sydney.
Yeah.
We've been together ever since.
Yeah. So you guys travelled back with a little detour to various exotic countries.
We did. We came through India.
And settled back in Ireland and started to have all of us.
Yeah, yeah.
So this is the time period. So this would be like around time you're talking about is about the 90s.
Yes, and that's where I got Autodesk, the 2D animator. So I had embarked on that. Yes, and back in Dublin, then the dance scene was really taken over. And then I had an association with Dance Act in Dublin called Soundcrowd, and they were very successful for a dance act. They were filling the halls, and I was doing visuals for them, which was great. The heights of it would be like Temple Stadium in Thurles. It was a big festival every year, and they like the day Soundcrowd played was Prodigy.
Prodigy, yeah.
They were in the caravan next to us, and Bjork, where she used to fall all day. But anyway, it was a huge festival.
Wow.
It was 40,000 people. Yeah, but the low of working on the nightclub scene in Ireland was possibly doing visuals in a nightclub on Sir John Rogerson's Quay, which is right on the Liffey, in the heart of Dublin. And that was some place. I mean, they'd search you for weapons on the way in, Molly, and if you didn't have one, they'd give you one. When I came back to Ireland from Australia, I got my hands on an Autodesk 2D animator. So that really opened it up. And that was at the very dawn of it, Molly. The computers were crap. Everything was really slow. But it was, it meant that you could make cartoons in your bedroom. And then, of course, Flash. That was a great liberator because, you were there at the dawn of Flash. How voices that previously wouldn't have access to the technology were now enabled by a simple piece of software. And that was like a watershed. Do you remember Glue?
Yeah.
And Mr. Wong.
Wildbrain Productions.
Yeah. Icebox. And who did the Dante's Inferno?
Oh, yeah.
That was great.
Yeah, that was really good. Was that? Yeah, I don't remember who made that, but it was incredible.
Yeah.
You also started to see, this would be like the 2000s, you started to see more traditional animation studios dipping their toes into Flash as well, like Gotham Girls and...
Gotham Girls was great with that little interactivity in between. Hey, they were...
Yeah. And
also what it meant, though, Molly, was the people who hadn't the technology and maybe even the ability were now enabled. So you get things like Kill Judge Judy. Do you remember that?
Indeed.
That was great.
Yeah.
Heard these voices that were never heard before.
Newgrounds and Albino Black Sheep. Absolute revolution in animation, not only because of the accessibility of the software, but also the accessibility of the audience.
Yeah.
Anyone with a computer could see your work. And you see it nowadays, like... that a lot of the animators who were really big back then, when they were teenagers making cartoons for other teenagers, have gone on to be absolute, like, superstars in the animation industry. Like, for example, Adult Swim show Smiling Friends.
Yeah.
Everybody on that production is a superstar from the Newgrounds days who started out with these types of things that you're talking about. It's amazing to see.
Yeah, that's really great.
Yeah, that raises an interesting question, which is animation then and animation now.
Well, animation then, Molly, it's so expensive to get the film, to get the equipment that will shoot. It was crazy. Each of those cells back when were $1 a piece.
Yeah.
So I mean, it often it's money that excludes people from accessing the technology. I was working with a Czechoslovakian animator. And he had worked in Czechoslovakia. And we must have been musing about how much these things cost. And he pointed out that back in Czechoslovakia, they clean off the cells and use them again.
Right.
Yeah, because after a year and a bit, the drawings and the cells, all the stuff, the art, would be put on a pallet and dumped. So I used to love those days because I could go through them and pick out key drawings. And I got loads of key drawings and saw how it works, and that was cool.
Nice
Did you throw them out?
So you were doing visuals for clubs in Dublin.
Yeah.
And then I think we're probably hitting around the early 2000s at this point. So I imagine it's almost end of the Celtic Tiger. So around the end of the Celtic Tiger, we all moved to Amsterdam.
We did.
And that's the next, and I suppose current phase in a way of your animation career.
We did a documentary about the Irish giant in a museum, Hunter Museum in London. They've had his skeleton on display, counter to his wishes, for more than 200 years. And recently they closed it down to do it up, and they've taken his skeleton off public exhibition.
Indeed. That was after the cartoon came out, which I worked on. I designed Hunter in it.
Indeed, you did, Wayne. You did a great job. That was great. And it was unusual because animated documentaries are unusual. But yeah, I think we made our point. He's no longer on display. Hunter, Molly, he was a real psychopath, stole this man's body, and he was positioned to the royals. But the royals back then had a collection of, freaks and jars and stuff. It was really awful. This doctor paid for his corpse, sat on it for 2 or 3 years because he knew people wouldn't like the fact that he'd robbed this man's body. And then he put him on display, and he's been on display in the Hunter Museum up to this day. Well, up until recently, where they were refurbishing the building, and they've not returned the skeleton to exhibition. But they still got him, and they should give him back. They should give all that stuff back, Mo, eh? All that stuff that they stole, eh? I think so.
This was maybe not directly after or due to the animation, but I do believe that animation got quite a bit of attention and brought a lot of awareness to body being on display against his wishes. So who knows, maybe that had an effect on their decision to remove it from display. Would you like to talk about Future Vision?
Before Future Vision was the Free Fringe Festival.
That's right, yeah.
We did that for 10 years, Molly. And within that, we had a forum for films, and I had made several animations. We showed those within the festival, and I had one animation I made called Inside the Dishwasher, shown at SIGGRAPH in 2006. So that was a real accolade. What we were trying to do with the Free Fringe Festival was set up an alternative to the money-led festivals in Amsterdam. I tell you, Mal, there's something really counter and something really revolutionary in doing things for free, because we all operate free. Nobody's getting any money out of this, but it really breaks the walls down because it demands that people find motivation to do it other than money, which is really a good thing. Yes, I like free. It's quite subversive.
After the Free Fringe Festival, we finished up with that after about 10 years. After all the fun we had, which was great.
And this consisted of various locations in Amsterdam. I remember it very fondly, like the Vondelbunker and the Bodhuis and other places where there'd be performances. There would be animation film festivals. There was also a video game art show, Warp Zone, which I led. Yeah. And we had a lot of fun with that. Yeah.
Yeah, that was really cool.
During this time, you were also performing in a band and creating plays. So it was less animation focused and more kind of general art. Like you broadened out quite a bit, I think.
Yeah. What am I called? Polymath? Is that what they call them? I like doing lots of things, Molly.
Right. Well, clearly from the influences and places that influenced you with animation, all these different applications for the art form.
Yeah, but animation is one of the greatest mediums, though, isn't it? I mean, it's everything. That's what always attracted me to it. Everything is possible. And transmogrified into Future Vision Festival, because we also have a show on TV, on local Amsterdam TV on Salto. And we've done that. That's been going for 10 years now.
Yeah.
That was Future Vision Amsterdam. And that became Future Vision Festival, which was a film festival. We've been doing that now for a few years. I start my mornings off all with a breakfast of animation. I'm assessing the films as they come in. And so that's such a privileged position, because I'm assessing thousands of films for half the year. I'm seeing this river of creativity. There's lots of great stuff happening around the world, Molly. So that's very interesting.
It's kind of the logical next step of the accessibility of animation software and animation audiences, that then there's all these works coming from all over the world. So animation is everywhere.
It really is everywhere. Like this year, one of the best films
From several points. The writing, the animation, the direction, everything. It's from Iran. Yeah, so that's very interesting.
What's the next thing that you're working on?
Well, I'm working on music. We're always editing for the TV show, for Salto, doing a weekly program, and we have been since last year. Then the festival is always coming around, so those two things are keeping me pretty busy. The other things, I'm always writing. We've been working on it off and on for a long time. You know, it's like a pet project. I hope it doesn't end up like the Thingy and the Cobbler, or what's this?
Thief and the Cobbler.
Yeah.
So for our audience, pitch it. What is this project you're talking about?
Well, we're talking about the adventures of Kimono and Chibi, and the two characters who live in this world that is slowly disappearing. So they're trying to move away from the disappearing. It's mixed media. We got a real good look, Molly, and I think it's a real good story.
With this entire career behind you, 2 of your children are animators, professional animators, Faye, Heady in Tokyo, and me.
And you, and you are very good.
Thank you. What's that like, having animator children for you?
Well, I think it was always part of Sam and my plan to build...
To breed a studio.
A studio of really talented artists. I think was always our plan. No, I'm delighted, Molly. But, you know, I will say this about you. But to find the thing that you wanted to do in life, you didn't go very far now, did you? Because we're always watching cartoons.
We're lazy, but they say that a good animator is a lazy animator.
Indeed they do, Molly. Indeed they do.
I could imagine that there's a lot of animators probably listening to this podcast now. Would you have a word of advice for younger animators working now?
What I like about animators, Molly, is it's a bit like an athlete. You can't call yourself an animator unless you do it. You got to come up with the animation. And so I really admire animators. They're hardworking people. You need to be determined. You need to be playing the long game, don't you? It's always curious to me that those great Japanese animators, they can calculate how many films they have left to make. And some of the great ones talking 2, 3. So, and life is short. So do what you want.
I think that's an excellent point to end on. Thank you very much, Martin, for sharing your experiences. Thank you, everyone, for listening. To keep track of some of Martin's projects, they can head over to futurevisionfestival.com and get information about the Future Vision Festival and any updates on the Kimono and Chibi-chan project.
Yes, and send us any films that you've got if you want to get them shown at the festival and on TV.